Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, at our very last Girlfriend Weekend. We have our authors here, and people are going to be jumping on board in and out. So if I pause for a minute, I'm letting somebody in. So thank you for all being here bright and early since I had so many glitches yesterday. I had a lot of last minute changes, and I want to just briefly talk about those. Ann Hood had to back out because she took a teaching engagement in Florida. She's on a plane as we speak, headed there. So Lisa C. was supposed to be in the morning, and now she's going to be in the afternoon. And so the morning time spot, Barbara Davis is going to be on, and we're going to be in conversation with her. But this morning, Abbott Kahler is our author, and she's got a brand new book. And you're not going to believe this. I don't have the questions in front of me. I had so much time trying to get on this morning. I don't have them in front of me, but and I'm trying to think how I could get that. We're just going to have to wing it. I'm going to wing it. I kind of read over them and I know what to do, but I have the program here and we'll keep on track. But first, I want to introduce my co-host. This is Jeffrey Lawrence Matthews, and he came on board for the first time last year when we were in his home state of Florida. Well, he wasn't born in Florida, but he's there now. And he had a wonderful book that I'm going to let him briefly tell about it, and then we're going to have him on a panel later. So welcome, Jeffrey, as my co-host, my
co-host.
Co-host. You've been calling flustered, you all, and I never get flustered. So while you're talking, I'm going to breathe. So just talk to everybody a little bit. Let me catch my breath. Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I think it's appropriate that given all the technology glitches, and they happen, unless you have a 13-year-old around your house, you're gonna run into something that you can't figure out. I guess it's appropriate. I'm going to be talking about AI tomorrow, artificial intelligence, and I hope you all tune in because I think it'll be interesting, and I think it will be educational. And the theme is AI, friend or foe. Is it the writer's friend or foe? And I think it will surprise you too. The reason I'm here, and you can't. I've got that stupid background thing going on.
I know it blots out your book.
Okay.
Here, I'll show it while you're talking. I'll pull it up and show everybody. Go ahead, keep talking.
Okay. One Must Tell the Bees was my first novel. I had written a nonfiction. I'm a finance guy. I wrote a nonfiction finance book about Warren Buffett for McGraw-Hill back in, I don't know, 15 years ago. And around the same time, I started thinking about this idea of having Sherlock Holmes meet Abraham Lincoln, which had never been done before for some weird reason. I don't know why. I'm a Sherlock guy, but also a Civil War student. And I put them together in a book that takes you to the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth. It puts Sherlock Holmes in the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth, what we now know is his very first case. And what was interesting about the whole process was I'm very tuned into the Sherlockian world. So I wanted to make it accurate to that, but I also wanted to make it very accurate to Civil War history because I had a couple of points to make about history itself. And we were going through this period as I was writing it, where America started to reevaluate that very period of our history, the Civil War, and what it meant. Statues started getting pulled down. And I think the madness kind of culminated in the San Francisco School Board decided they were going to remove Abraham Lincoln's name from a school building because of his administration's policies towards Native Americans. And I don't know any administration that covered itself in glory when it comes to Native Americans, but I do know that Lincoln, thanks to his Emancipation Proclamation and the armies of General Grant, freed 4 million human souls from bondage. So that kind of informed the book. And I am now working on a follow-up that is going to place Sherlock Holmes. Again, it's based on an actual story that Arthur Conan Doyle wrote, in which he said Sherlock Holmes had once paid a visit to the Dalai Lama in Tibet in 1891. And I always thought that was an incredibly cool idea. So the follow-up to One Must Tell the Bees, the working title is To the Edge of Revelation. And it brings Sherlock Holmes to Tibet in 1891 during a very interesting period of history when the Brits were in kind of in a diplomatic chess match against the Tsar. The Tsar was moving influence down towards India. The Brits were terrified because they controlled India, so they were trying to push their influence up, and they met around Tibet, and that's why Tibet was such a big deal back then. And I think it's a fairly timely idea because China's in the midst of taking over Tibet. They took it over, but they're really in the midst of destroying it. They destroyed most of the monasteries. They kept a few open for the tourist trade because they want to look good to Westerners. They killed millions of Tibetans because, of course, Tibetans don't believe in killing, right? So they didn't have any weapons. And the Dalai Lama is, I think he's 90, and he's very infirm. And when he dies, there's going to be a problem. There's going to be a problem as to who succeeds him. And I think the Chinese are going to use that as a way of taking over finally Tibetan Buddhism. So I think it's interesting. It's very rewarding, all the research, and I think it's going to be fairly timely. So that's what I've been doing in addition to watching Kathy wrestle these technology crocodiles and getting us all together. And thank you, Kathy, for getting us all together.
Well, AI is just taking over the world, and I'm going to have the perspective from college because being an art history major, it's a real problem because all the papers that the students are turning in are AI generated, and it is becoming a huge problem of plagiarism. So we'll be talking about that later. So everybody, it's good to see you here. Does anybody know a storm? If your name isn't an author that I have on my list, I don't know a storm that wants to be admitted. Does anybody know anybody named Storm?
No.
Just hope if the person I asked everybody to have their real name and their photo so I would know who it is, but there's no photo, so I can't let them in. I had that happen to me one time before, and I learned from that mistake. So Jeffrey, right? Jeffrey's here. I saw Jeffrey Dale
Oh, yeah.
Lofton's here.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, thank you. We're looking forward to it. Jeffrey's going to be helping me throughout the weekend, and I just want to introduce now one of the first authors I had as a book club selection when I first opened my hair salon bookstore, Beauty in the Book. In fact, Random House sent her to me because I was doing a online television show with Random House. I was sponsored by them called Beauty in the Book Show, and I was the host. And Karen, Abbott Kahler was my very first author, and she had these awesome boots on, and she was a big hit, and we keep having her back and back. In fact, I even set up an event for all of our authors one time when I went to New York, and she came and was presenting at Barnes & Noble. We had a wonderful thing over by Central Park, and but we've known each other for years, and she is quite the writer. She has each one is a standalone book. And so I'm going to turn it over to Karen for just a minute to tell you your background, Karen, and tell them about the books you've written.
Sure. Well, I want to say first, Kat, thanks so much for having me. It has been an honor to be doing this with you since 2000, at least 15 years, at least. Yeah. And you're such a beacon for the literary community and somebody who's just championed writers, and really you're a legend. So I thank you, and I love being here every time talking to you, and really appreciate everything you do for writers and for books. So as Kathy had mentioned, I have written narrative nonfiction in the past. I've always tried to write scandalous tales from history, brothels, madams, female Civil War spies, bootleggers, pioneering female district attorneys. But I also, I tried to write them in a way that they read like fiction, staying within the confines of fact, but writing it like fiction. Well, this is actually my very first true novel. I made it up. It is inspired by a true story, but it's under my actual legal name, which is Abbott Kahler. It's called Where You End, and it's out this Tuesday. And I'll just tell you a little bit about that. It was inspired by a true story. In 2019, I happened to watch this really fascinating documentary called Tell Me Who I Am. And it tells the story of British twins, Alex and Marcus Lewis, who when Alex was 18, he suffered a traumatic brain injury. And when he woke up from a coma, the only things he remembered was his brother's face and name. Here's Alex and Marcus Lewis. Anybody could see that picture. There's a little glare, but you can see the twins. He only remembered his brother's face and name. All of their history, all of their memories, all of the other family and friends completely wiped out. So in this state, he was very vulnerable. He had to trust that his brother was going to fill in all of the blanks about his history, his identity, his likes, his dislikes, his sense of humor. He just needed to be completely rebuilt from the ground up. And of course, who else is he going to trust but his identical twin to do that? But in this tragedy, Marcus saw an opportunity, and he decided he was going to lie to his brother and basically reinvent their history, and tell memories that actually never had happened. So just inventing things out of whole cloth. And, eventually Alex begins to suspect that his brother has been lying to him all along. And this leads into danger and situations that neither of them expected. And it's also inspired by my own life. These are it's my mother and her twin sister. They're identical twins. Kat and Jude, their names were Catherine and Judith, and I actually named my protagonists in Where You End, Kat and Jude. And my mom and her twin were more than identical twins. They were actually mirror twins, which is this really weird and very rare occurrence that happens when the embryo splits later than usual. My mom parted her hair naturally on one side, my aunt the other side. My mom was right-handed, my aunt was left-handed. So looking at each other was sort of akin to looking in a mirror. And, after hearing about the Marcus twins and watching that documentary, I began to think about what my mom and her twin sister would have done in that situation. What kind of lies would they have told? Would they have lied at all? Would the lies be seen as a betrayal or as a gift? What kind of dangers were going to face them as Kat in my book, starts to unravel her sister's, elaborate tapestry of lies. It opens up doorways to the past and figures that brings the past back into the present and begins to threaten not only their very unique twin bond, but also their lives. So that's the premise for Where You End. It is a twisted psychological thriller of identity, memory, some twin, some very weird twin happenings, I should say. Even the secret language that Kat and Jude used in the book was based on the language that my mom and her sister used when they were young. And so it was a very, very personal book to write. And also, it's kind of, as you might surmise from the cover with the rabbit masks, it's going to creep you out a little bit, I think, in the very best way. The one New Yorker writer described it as Donna Tartt meets David Lynch, which was a very kind description. And I hope it's fitting. That's really kind of the vibe I was going for. So that's where, yeah.
Well, you just received the book. I mean, I shared the videos of you unboxing the book, and it was pretty exciting. And I have been waiting for this for a long time because I don't know how many times I've emailed you. When's that book coming out? When's that book coming out? So we're really happy. This is almost, well, it is. We're launching your book. So everybody needs that. Where's the best places that you would suggest to order the book? So if anybody wants to get a copy, because it's our, lead book this month. So one of our lead books.
Yeah, thank you. It is. You can order any online. I always like to support independent bookstores. You could go to bookshop.org. If you go to my website, which is just my name, Abbott Kahler, ABBOTTKAHLER.com, there's a link to all of the places where you can buy the book, and it's out Tuesday. If anybody wants a signed copy, I'm going on tour. You can contact any of those bookshops. I can happy to inscribe or sign or whatever. It's terrifying. I'm not going to lie. I think writers don't often talk about the process of publishing. Writing is one thing when you're sitting in your room all cozy by yourself. talking to dead people or talking to people you invented. Often it's the only people you talk to all day long. You just go a little nuts and you're by yourself all the time. And suddenly your book is not a private thing anymore. It's a very public thing. And it's scary. It's exciting, but it's also very scary. And especially, having jumping from one genre of nonfiction to fiction with all the kinds of challenges in that. It's really scary, and it just helps immensely to talk to other people who like books, who are interested in books, who believe books are important, and just feel like you're not sort of flapping out in the wind by yourself. There are other people in this community who want to read books and are interested in stories.
Well, for 24 years, we've been your big fans, and you've written several other books. Just give those titles, because each one is so unique, and what they're about, because you do lots of research, and we've talked about this many times. But I love the stories, especially the one we had on the Beauty and the Book Show, which you can still watch it, Beauty and the Book Show with, it says, I think, with Karen Abbott on YouTube. So you can still watch it, but tell us a little bit about those books.
Sure. My first book was called Sin in the Second City. It was inspired by a true story. Again, everything I do is either be a true story or inspired by a true story. I always think fact is more interesting than fiction in some ways. It's the old adage. But my grandmother told me a story about her mom and her mother's sister. In 1905, they emigrated from Slovenia to the United States. The sister went to Chicago for one weekend and was never heard from again. And so I was always intrigued and haunted by this bit of family lore. And I began looking into what was going on in Chicago in early 1905. And found out, nothing about my ancestor. I learned nothing about my missing ancestor, but I found out about these two madams, Minna and Ada Everleigh, who were running the world's most famous and lavish brothel in Chicago in the early 1900s. So I completely forgot all about my ancestor, which sounds terrible, but I was much more interested in these very enigmatic, wonderful, pioneering women who were trying to elevate this industry. It was proliferation of red light districts in cities all across the country at the turn of the century. And they thought, the business is inevitable. This industry is inevitable. Let's try to elevate the standards and make sure the girls are clean, medically healthy, well cared for, well fed, draping in jewels and all the finery. They were even tutored in the poetry of Longfellow. They were educated. And so I was kind of fascinated by that and the whole nationwide effort to shut this brothels down, this brothel in particular. So that's called Sin in the Second City. That's my first book, but it was, I privately, before it was out in the world, I called it Whores at War, because they were sort of battling everybody. My second book was about a burlesque legend, Gypsy Rose Lee. If anybody out there is a fan of the Gypsy musical, Mama Rose, all of that, very dramatic and interesting woman who basically was an entertainer for most of the 20th century. And taking a look at her life was really just like looking at the development of America in the 20th century. And I got a lot of information that had never been published before, including the fact that her mother, Mama Rose, did actually murder somebody, which was not in the musical, and was really fascinating to learn about. And my third book was called Liar, Tempter, Soldier, Spy. It tells the true story of 4 female spies in the Civil War, 2 for the North and 2 for the South. And I think the most fascinating person in that book is a woman by the name of Mary Bowser. She was a formerly enslaved woman who was freed and was infiltrated her way into the Confederate White House to work for Jefferson Davis and his family, and became possibly the most important spy for the North, along with her spy master, Elizabeth Van Lew. And it just is sort of sad that she's not a household name. She really deserves to be known and studied everywhere. My next nonfiction book was called The Ghost of Eden Park. It was the true story of George Remus, America's most famous bootlegger, who was actually the inspiration for Jay Gatsby. In The Great Gatsby, he threw these incredible parties, and there were all kinds of fascinating similarities. And he actually made legal history by representing himself at a trial where trial where he was fighting an insanity charge. So he was insane, but able to represent himself. It was kind of a really crazy story. So, and then we have Where You End. And, again, inspired by truth, but really, really had fun letting my imagination take over in this one.
I'm telling you, they're all so different, and they're all page turners. The one thing about Abbott that I love is that no matter her subject matter, these books, even when they're based on, true facts, they're never historically boring. They're so engaging. So if you have not read her books, I begin with this one. I mean, it's just out, and I'm so excited for you. And on your Facebook page, you listed your entire book.
You're in it too, see?
I've got somebody talking.
Yeah, I see. I'm trying to help you though. Yeah.
I think it's you, Paul. Just hit mute right now.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to be in it.
I'm just trying to help you.
We can hear you, Paul and Joanne.
It shows me, Paul, too, which I didn't want to do.
It's okay.
Okay, I hope
whatever. I can get out of it.
No.
This is what happens when you do live Zoom.
It's all good.
Here, press
I'm glad they tuned in. It's okay. It's okay.
No.
Yeah.
Let's stop video. Start it again.
Anyway, well, I'm hoping he'll stop pretty soon. So
Start. Once you read those things.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Karen. Go ahead.
Share screen summary.
It's okay. I just hope if anybody's on the road, I can see you on the road. Anyway, but check out my website. It was just named the People Magazine Book of the Week, which I'm excited about. So if you get a chance to pick up Where You End, I hope you love it. I hope that get in touch with me. I love being in touch with readers. This is actually the fun part of the business, connecting with readers. And email me. Find me on Facebook. I really, I've made so many good friends over the years through Pulpwood Queens. And would love to continue that tradition and keep connecting with everybody here.
Well, I'm going to announce at the end of the Girlfriend Weekend my next game plan after this last year as the Queen. And I'm going to assure all the authors here that I'm going to, for the rest of my life, be promoting authors, books, literacy, and reading, and the Pat Conroy Center. So it's just going to be a different program. So this is the last year for the Pulpwood Queens. So, if you have any questions about your memberships, it'll last through the end of the year. And then we're on to something else I'll be announcing at the end. But I am really excited for you, really excited for this book. I don't think this was in the question, but I want to ask about it. While you were working on this, you said, I've got to go. I'm going to the Galapagos Islands. And I wanted you to share with everybody your very interesting private lifestyle and then talk about your pet, because you have so many interesting things happening in your own personal life. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Galapagos is actually a business trip. It's for my next nonfiction book, which is coming out in 2025. Right now it's slated for May of 2020. It's called Then Came the Devil, and it's the true story of a group of Germans who fled Germany in the years leading up to World War II, as all of the chaos and unrest was starting to happen in that country. And they decided to...
I've asked them to mute. They're just not seeing it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll talk loud. All right, so this group of Germans fleeing Germany in the years leading up to World War II decide to try to build a utopia in the remote Galapagos island of Floriana, which is all the way down at the southern tip of the Galapagos Islands. If the Galapagos Islands are remote now, and you can only imagine how desolate, remote, completely uninhabited they were back in the 1930s. And this planned utopia goes horribly awry, as utopias seem to always do. And, it becomes a bit of an adult Lord of the Flies. People go missing, people start dying. And it's really, and I always say this for my books because they get crazier and crazier, but this is the craziest nonfiction book I've ever researched or written. There is a woman, one of the main characters is named a Baroness. She shows up with 2 lovers and a gun. And really all hell breaks loose, to use a well-worn cliche, but all hell does break loose. And I can't wait for that one to be out in the world. That's a really fascinating story.
But I've read about this a lot in National Geographic and in different documentaries. What is it actually like to go there?
It took from New York City, where I live, it took 2 entire full days of travel just to get to that island. So you have to do all this rigmarole to get to Ecuador, the mainland, and then these like planes, trains, automobiles, to get finally to this little island. I think there's only about 250 people inhabiting Floriana now. I think I met every single one of them when I was there. There was a family party I was suddenly, showing up to, and the people were amazing. The hospitality was amazing. The animals, of course, were, beyond surreal. Just seal pups laying around everywhere, so tame you could go up and pet them. It's just a fascinating, you could see why Darwin and explorers were so fascinated by the Galapagos and what they have to teach about nature. And in this book, the people are the craziest animals of all, the most interesting animals of all, it turns out. So it was just a really surreal experience to go there. And I only went to Floriana. So at some point, hopefully I'll get back and check out the other islands. But Floriana is considered to be haunted by the people of Ecuador. There are a lot of ghost stories, a lot of death, a lot of mayhem. It was Ecuador's prison colony for a while. Or the Galapagos Islands, lots of very haunted and weird and creepy stories coming out of Floriana. So, of course, it was right up my alley.
That is fascinating. Now, tell us about your pet.
Oh, my pet, Chuck Dexter, has been summoned. Here, I'll bring him on. I have an African gray parrot. Kathy, I've had him for 23 years, so you've known him the entire time.
Yes,
too.
I have.
Here he is.
Oh.
Here's my pet. He knows he's gorgeous.
Okay,
show off your tail.
I've got to get a photo because that is just too precious. So I'm going to get a photo of all of you. Great.
He might start posing.
Yay! Hi. Good morning.
Hi, Dexter. Say hi, buddy.
Welcome to Barbie Land. We're really pink today. Does he talk at all?
He does. But he knows now that we want him to talk, so he's not going to talk. And then the minute that we shut off, we shut off, he's going to start talking.
Yeah.
But right now he's posing. You see the little tips of his head here in this way. He sort of knows he's a gorgeous bird. So,
oh my gosh.
I'm
going to go to Speak Review and take another photo. Oh my gosh. Pose for me. I got it. Okay. All right.
Kathy, could I ask Abbott something?
But
yes,
anyway.
do ask.
You should know I'm a big Liar, Temptress, Soldier, Spy is on my Civil War bookshelf. I loved it.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
I thought it told a really interesting side of the Civil War. You only hear about Rose Greenhill. You don't usually get much else. But I wondered if you wouldn't mind, you may be sick of this, but we're going to be talking about AI tomorrow. And I wondered if you might tell the story of your name change.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a cautionary tale of technology and social media that I think authors need to know about.
Absolutely.
Oh, AI terrifies me, so I probably should tune in tomorrow and hear what you have to say about it. Maybe I'll find some comfort in your words, or be more terrified.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jeffrey. That's really kind that you enjoyed the book. I'm glad to hear that. But so my name change was again a very kind of creepy story. In 2013, I believe it was, I got an email from a reader saying that, do you know that if you Google yourself, it says you died in 2010. I did not know this. I Googled myself, which I never do. And sure enough, my picture pops up, my alma mater, and it says died 2010. And at that time, I was thinking about doing some fiction. I've always wanted to try fiction. I was in the middle of a project that ended up not going anywhere, but I was working on fiction at the moment and thinking, you know what, And I was also, this is important, I was also turning 40. So I think I was also having a bit of a midlife crisis. And I was like, that's very strange and weird. And, I'm going to change my name. So back, I think it was 2014, I went into the New York courts, I did all the paperwork and became Abbott Kahler. But I wasn't able to use it on any of my books because I had, been going on a nonfiction streak with Karen Abbott. That this is the first time with my novel that I'm being permitted to use my real name. So that's the story of the name change. And I probably will stick with it from now on because I've got another book coming out next year, and it might be weird to go back and forth at this point. So,
was there any recourse? Did you try to do anything to correct it before you resorted to the name change, or was it just?
I did. I got a bunch of people to write into Google reporting it as false. So the reports of my death, of course, greatly exaggerated, but it did get taken down. But it was just weird. I don't know how it ended up there in the first place. I don't know what kind of glitch in the system reported that I had died in 2010. Maybe I have an enemy out there I'm not aware of who hoped I died in 2010. I don't know. But so yeah, it was just really weird. It was really disconcerting in a way. So yeah, but no other measures were taken. I just got it taken down off Google and went and changed my name pretty much as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Well, I'm always fascinated by all your posts and the things that you do. And is there anything I missed on the list of questions we talked about we were going to discuss, since I don't have it in front of me, that you want to talk about?
I think we covered everything. Yeah.
Great. Well, let's open it up, and we've got a few more minutes. So if anybody has any comments or questions like Jeffrey, raise your hand or shout out. And yes, Marilyn.
I see Suzanne has, sorry.
We'll go Marilyn and Suzanne.
Has she just has a lot of twin stories. So yeah. Hi, Marilyn.
Wonderful to meet you for the first time. I was wondering if you could tell us a little about how you got started as a writer.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I always wrote when I was a little kid. In fact, I'll tell you a little bit about that. I was 10 or 11 years old and I started submitting stories to Alfred Hitchcock and Ellery Queen mystery magazines. And they were very weird tales. Again, I don't know why my mother didn't put me into therapy at some point, but the story I remember most was called Tea with Mr. Roper. And it was a story. I was a Gen X kid. I watched Three Companies, so Tea with Mr. Roper. And there was a story. It was a story about a widow, a very lonely widow, whose husband died. She had no friends. All of her friends were dying off, and she was very lonely. And every day she looked forward to having tea with Mr. Roper, who was her neighbor. And she would talk about the days with her husband, her fun days, her dancing days, her party days, and reminisce. And she talked so much that poor Mr. Roper never got in a word in edgewise. He just was this patient listener. So it turns out at the end of the story that Mr. Roper was actually a decaying corpse in her pantry that she would trot out every day and make tea with him. She had killed him just to have company. Again, I don't know. Shockingly, you'll be shocked to know that these were never published.
They could be today.
I really, in retrospect, think, what was wrong with me? But anyway, that's how. So I always wanted to be a writer. I ended up falling into journalism by accident, and that started my nonfiction path. But fiction was always sort of a passion, and really, really thrilled that I'm now getting able to do it. Now I'm going to do it. So.
Wow. Reminded me of Grady Hendrix, who has all his crazy stories. Grady. Oh, anybody else? Oh, Suzanne, did you have something?
I just posted a note that I have a lot of twins in my family. So my children are twins, and my grandmother was a twin, and my sister-in-law is an identical twin. So
oh wow, what are your twins identical or fraternal? Suzanne?
They're fraternal. I have a boy and a girl, so their relationship is a bit different, but the relationship between identical twins is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Like my sister-in-law has to talk to her sister like 10 times a day, and they have to live near each other, and
yeah, it's intense. It's intense. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did want to ask you, oh, sorry.
Oh, sure. Please go ahead. Yeah.
No, I wanted to ask you, what is the name of the Galapagos book that you mentioned?
Oh, it's called Then Came the Devil. Then Came the Devil.
Okay.
I'll write it down in here. Yeah.
Okay.
And it will be out. It's slated to be out in May of 2025.
Fantastic.
And I have a little bit up on my website now. A little bit about it up on my website. So if you want to read further, there's a little bit up there.
Tell everybody your website so they can go look.
Sure. It's abbottkahler.com, ABBOT. I'll write it down here. ABBOTTKAHLER.com. Yeah. Oh, I put too many B's in there. 2 B's and 2 T's.
You're excited. Yeah. I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
This is a big week. When do you start your book tour?
On Tuesday, I have an event in New York City, and Wednesday I go to Philadelphia, my hometown, and that's where UN takes place in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So I'll be interested in go back home to the scene of many crimes. Some literal. No. I'm kidding. Yeah.
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a question. I wanted to know the name of the Civil War book that Jeffrey was talking about.
Oh, it's called Liar, Temptress, Soldier, Spy. I'll write that down too.
Yeah, I have seen that title. My great-grandfather was a Union surgeon at the Battle of Gettysburg. So
oh my God, you're kidding me.
Yeah, he's on the big monument there at Gettysburg, but I'm getting ready to write a novel about the Civil War in the Northwest, because there's a lot of things going on out here. So
and you never hear about it. You never hear about that part.
Oh, it's crazy. Victoria, DC was there was a lot of Confederate stuff going on. So, but I'm taking his story as a Union doctor. I did a lot of research in how the doctoring was done in that time. A lot of people think that they didn't have ether and things like that, but they did have, especially after I think 64. He came in on 63. He was a country doctor and became an army doctor, and he was at Battle of Gettysburg 3 months after he got into
I want to read that book. That's fascinating.
We all do. And, through the years, I picked a lot of different stories, and they're all so unique. But I'm telling you, Jeffrey and Abbott could be, some great resources for you, too. Because, I love it when authors, kind of have conversations privately with each other. So keep that in mind, Janet. And I'm so glad you're here. Anybody else? Not one person. Okay.
If you think of anything else later, please email me. I'm always happy to chat. Contact me anytime and with any questions or comments or Janet, if you want to talk about the Civil War, I'd love to do that. So.
Also, for all the authors that are here, if you want to continue the conversation, post anything you want to share that you may not have been able to on this conference on the Pulpwood Queen Presents page, and I'll approve it, or on the official International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys page, and I'll approve it because I get notices, and I'll just hit, and then we'll keep the conversations going, because that's what makes our book club so unique, is the fact that we bring our authors into the conversation, because it's just like, you can look at Karen and you can read the book, but when you talk to her, you get the inside, and this is your chance. So if anybody has anything they want to say, or, now's your last few minutes. And I'm looking at the time. We've got 4 minutes left. Any last words for everybody? Karen, Abbott?
It's okay. Let's see. Well, looking forward to trying to tune in to listen to other people. And I just want to, thank people for, I know, Kathy, you've gathered very loyal friends and family over the years, and fans. And I just want to say, thank you to everybody else for coming out early on this Saturday morning to talk about books. I think that The form of books is always going to change. I'm sure Jeffrey will have more to say about that in his AI talk. But the need for storytelling is never going to change. Everybody always wants stories. Stories are the sort of foundation of our society in a lot of ways. And I just want to salute all the readers here and the writers here, and say, you know, let's keep doing this. You know, whatever form it takes. I think it's important that we keep doing this.
Well, I'm going to tell you, anything you want from me, you got it. If you want me to help you do a bigger book launch later, I am so on board, because you have really supported me through the years. I'm going to ask one last thing. You're going to kill me. There's something that you do every time we get together. Can you still do that thing?
I can still do it. You know, there was a couple presidents added to the list since we last did it. So I don't know if it's going to be 10 seconds, but I'll do as fast as I can. Hold on.
Well, tell them what you're going to do, because when I had my Beauty and the Book show, I would find hidden talents of my authors, you know, everything from, you know, Paula McLean doing baton twirling to Abbott Kahler doing, tell them what you're going to do.
I was able to recite all of the presidents in 10 seconds. Like I said, it might be a couple more seconds added on at this point, because there's been a few more presidents. So I will give it my best shot, and let's do it. Okay. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Beard, Harrison, Tyler, Kennedy, Lincoln, Johnson, Grant, Hayes, Buckland, Cleveland, Harrison, Cleveland, Kilmer, Tafel, Sonora, Claude Humor, Truman, Kennedy, Johnson, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Obama, Trump. Wait, I think that's up at the end. And Biden. Yeah. I'm not quite awake yet, but there you go. Yeah, I could do it slower and really get them all.
Very good. Thank you for bringing a little levity to this morning, and thank you for being here, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. I have to download and record this, and then we'll be back for the next Zoom link, and hopefully it'll go as smooth as this one did. Remember to mute your buttons when the author and I are talking, or and then I'll bring you back into the conversation when we at the end. So thank you for the wonderful.
Kathy, can we stay on this link, or do we have to get, okay, we have to go back on the next link?
We have to go into the next link, because I can't record each one, and it's too long. It would take a week to download.
I just wanted to make sure. Just wanted to make sure.
So each one of these sessions is posted on the website now. I updated it with the Central Standard Time. I've also put it up on every one of my pages at the top of the page. So thank you, Abbott Kahler, and thank you, everybody, for being here. So we'll see you in a few minutes. We're going to be back. The next author to be presenting is going to be, let me go to this right page. Oh, have I gotten out of line? Okay, I've got, oh gosh, how did these pages get out of line? I'm missing one.
Is it Barbara Davis?
Barbara Davis. Yes, she is. She's next. So we'll see Barbara Davis at, I believe we just finished this one at 9:30. So we'll see you at 9:30, and I'll be back. Okay, bye everybody. We'll see you soon.
9:45.
9:45 Central Standard Time. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.